In this video, we will discuss Boolean operators as they are used in challenge question 4.3 for Module 2 in IT 140. This is Linda Gaston, your instructor. Booleans are important because they allow programs to test if conditions are true or false. Booleans are perfect for this because they simply return two values, true or false. So let's talk about this. In your programs, you will often need to compare two values. In Python, you can evaluate the expression in your program where you're comparing two values and return a Boolean answer. For example, this expression print 11 greater than 8. In the background, Python is evaluating this expression to determine if it is true or false. Similarly, with this expression, 9 equals 8, and note the double equal sign here. That's important to determine for the Python interpreter to determine that we are doing a comparison here rather than an assignment. And we will simply print, in this case, the value false. In this case, if we print 11 greater than 8, we'll print true. Or in the final case, if we print 1, 2, 3 greater than 10, Python will evaluate this to a value of true. Let's take a look at this. So here we are in Python Anywhere, a program I like to use to demonstrate Python code. It's a free program. You can sign up to use Python Anywhere and use it for this class or other Python programs. I also encourage you to use the terminal window that's located in Code.io for this type of experimentation as well. So here's our first command, print 11 greater than 8. Can you think what this would resolve to? This should be evaluated by the Python interpreter, and it should evaluate to true because 11 is greater than 8. Look at the next expression, 9 equals 8. Is that true? Well, obviously it's false. And then finally, what will we print with this expression? Print 123 is greater than 10. Well, we should see the Python interpreter evaluate this expression to true. So let's run the program and see how the Python interpreter performs this code. So we're going to run our code and we're going to see it running in the bottom here. So it's evaluating the program. If you look here, it's loading the Python interpreter and it's going to print true for the first one, false for the second one, and true for the next one. So that lets you know that under the hood, when you have expressions like this, the Python interpreter is evaluating them to true or false. Similarly, when you have conditional expressions, like an if statement in Python, it still returns true or false. Let's look at this program. Let's say we have two variables, my balance, and we give it a value of 1,000, and my withdraw, and we give it a value of 100. Now, here is our conditional expression. If my balance is greater than my withdraw, and obviously you can see this is a banking application, we'll print balance is sufficient for withdrawal. Otherwise, this means if my balance is not greater than my withdraw, we're going to print balance is not sufficient for withdrawal. In Python, it's evaluating this statement to if true, do this, otherwise do this. If it's not true, it must be false. So the true condition is this behavior, the false condition is this behavior. Let's talk now about Code.io Challenge 4.3. Here, we're given two Boolean inputs, cold and rainy. These are actually Boolean variables, as you'll see in the code in a moment. Boolean variables can only be true or false. Your program should output a single string, whether it's warm, cold or warm, or rainy or dry, based on the inputs. Cold or warm means you should use one of the two words depending on the input Boolean value. For example, if we have false and true given into your program, we're going to print warm and rainy. Because if you look at this condition, if it's not true, it's going to be warm. So we see this condition is false. If this is true, that means it is rainy. So let's take a look at the code to increase your perspective on how this is working. Here's the code. You're told to get your Boolean values from the command line, and we do that in the way that we've been doing using Code.io since the beginning, importing the sys library that allows us to get console input. Code.io simulates this for us. So here's our first Boolean variable, is cold. Typically when you see variables with this type of is structure, that's kind of a clue that they're Booleans. So is cold is going to equal the value of true. That's going to be the first argument that we get using this system library from the console. That's what this structure means. So is cold equals true. That means this condition is true. Is rainy is going to be the second variable that we get from the console. It's also going to be set equal to true. So we start out with these values. Now your code goes here. If is cold, this condition is if is cold. If this is true, and it is true, we're going to ask another question. Notice the indentation. This is still within this if statement. This means we have multiple if statements within one if statement. So if this is true, we go down to the next statement that's underneath here. Remember, in Python, indentation is very important. If it's not true, we go to this else condition that's aligned with this one. So here we go. If it's cold, in this case it is true, we're going to ask if it's rainy. If this is true, we're going to print cold and rainy. Otherwise, we're going to print cold and dry. Notice, because we're still in this structure, code is true. So we ask about the second variable next. If it's false, that means cold and dry. We end up in this part of our program if it's not cold, this else condition. So that tells you straight away that cold is false. So the next thing we're going to ask is, well, is it rainy? If that's true, we'll print warm and rainy. Since cold is false, we're looking at this first value of being warm. Otherwise, if it's not rainy, that means it's dry. We already know that cold is false, and now we know that rainy is false, so it's warm and dry. So that resolves to a chart that looks something like this one. Here's our two variables, cold, rainy. Here's the condition. If both of these are true, it's cold and rainy. If one is true and one is false, it's cold and dry. If one is false and one is true, it's warm and rainy. If both are false, it's warm and dry. Now, just to increase your perspective on how we can use Booleans, here's another exercise. Let's say we have a string, and that string contains hello world. We can actually use functions here. And remember, we can take advantage of the free library of functions that comes with Python without us doing any coding. One of them is alphanumeric. So this expression is saying if my string is alphanumeric, we're going to send the value of my string to the isAlphanum function that Python has prepared for us. This function checks if all characters are numbers. If all characters are numbers, it returns true to our program. In this particular case, it's going to return false. We can determine if the string is alpha or alphabetic. If the string is a digit, that means including numbers. If it's title, in this case it is, because title case is the first letter of each word is capitalized. In this particular function, we ask if my string is uppercase, all uppercase. So we send the value of my string to the isUpper function. In this case, it's going to return false. I hope this video increased your perspective on using Booleans and the solution to 4.3. in Code.io for Module 2. If you have questions, please contact me for a virtual appointment. During this appointment, I will use software to see your screen and help talk through any challenges you may have. Or if you decide to email me, please include a screenshot of where you're having difficulty. I can help you much better and much faster if you do so. Thank you for your time and attention during this video.